Remember what the quest is. The quest is to seize, grasp, produce, or whatever, a C major, which will be victory, over we lost that in the coda of the first movement. And now we are still in quest of a stable, not just a fatal C major, but of a C major that's going to be lasting, a C major that's nailed down. That's the first thing. C major is like a C major you actually nailed down and say, yes, now I have it permanently in my possession. We go to this very unusual and wonderful slow movement, not really in a standard form at all. It's kind of like human variations, but it's not really human variations. What it really is a slow movement, second movement, which cycles through a pair of ideas multiple times. In fact, there are 4 cycles, or what I call 4 rotations, through this particular set of ideas. And the way you read this diagram is 1 is on the top, the second cycle is below, the third cycle, and then what followed by coda. Each cycle of themes consists of 2 themes. This has nothing to do with sonata practice, but there are 2 themes, both of which start out in A flat. And it's quite clear that the second theme, in the kind of ceremonial quality, the kind of somber and ceremonial A flat quality, it's kind of ceremonial march, even though it's in 3/4. It's an odd kind of thing. It's kind of like now on a conveyor belt, a kind of formal and ceremonial march line conveyor belt. And what happens on that conveyor belt, the A flat ground begins almost to shake under you, and you seize C major at the end of the, that's that little lift that you have in cycle 1. It's as though you see from A flat major, you see C major, you say, well, look, there's no problem. I'll get C major for you. I'll just go and grab it. And throughout you have this bum, 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 short, long idea. It's clear all over this movement. That bop, 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 bum is still very much an issue. So in other words, 2 themes. Theme 1, which clearly must represent at some metaphorical level the A-flat musical subject or musical protagonist, that being, that fictional being that is going to start the 3/8 march, theme 2, and actually try to grab C major from A-flat major from the key of 6. This is a non-tonic slow movement. So the way I understand this is that the initial theme, this beautiful, graceful theme, represents some sort of narrative subject. It's another portrait of a hero, an idealized heroic portrait. I don't want to get too programmatic, but it's as though we are tracing in the most wonderful sketch or design the outline of this perfectly noble hero. Notice it's played by cellos, that is to say in the male vocal register. And this is like the hero that will go and grab the C, the A-flat hero that will simply go and claim C major, plant the flag on C major. Here's the famous opening cellos. It's all metaphor. I understand that this is an A-flat phrase leading to a cadence and so forth, but metaphorically it seems to be this graceful outline. You can almost see the pencil drawing this perfect hero that is going to make this march. Now, no sooner do we hear this outline, this configuration, this A-flat melody, which will be the protagonist, then we have the whole orchestra joining in what I call acclamations or salutes or hails to the hero. And all this can be determined from French Revolutionary music, like the crowd suddenly hailing or saluting. You are the great hero. And so the crowd suddenly comes in. And then Beethoven breaks up the orchestra into winds and strings. You get an embrace, what I always call the embrace of the winds. Yes, I will try to claim C major for you. Then moving over to the strings, yes, I will try to claim C major for you. It's an individual embrace of the constituent parts of the orchestra. The winds, the embrace, this heartfelt yes. So there's nothing but complete cadences. Over to the strings. More A flat. Notice a lot of dot, 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 dots, dot, 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 all over the place, faith. So theme 1 is really a complex of ideas. First of all, there is the phrase itself, the A-flat phrase itself, which clearly represents some sort of masculinized narrative subject that will in fact take the mark of playing C major, kind of profile of the hero. There is the hail, the ave, the salute to the hero from the crowd, to the orchestra. There's the double embrace, winds and strings. There's the acknowledgement to use, and then theme 2 will take off. So let's listen again from the opening. Single phrase leading to an imperfect cadence. Hail, the cadence. See, I'm just going to grab it. I'm just going to go and take it. Got it. Trumpets. You have just claimed that which you want more than anything in the world, C major, all the health and solidity of C major. You grab it, you claim that you've got it, and suddenly it just vanishes like smoke in your arms. The C major is a mirage, it just decays. It's like water through the hands, smoke in your, it just disappears. You're there. How did I lose it? I just planted the flag, I claimed it, and it's gone. Why can't I hang on to this C major? Move it back a bit. Failure, mirage. I say, all I can do is try again. It didn't work the first time, so decision, I'll try again. Okay, now we start cycle 2. Exactly the same series of events. This time the hero is profiled in that initial theme, theme 1, in a variant form in 16th notes. You can still hear the theme through the 16th notes of the chorus. It's as though the hero is more inwardly active. However, at the embraces and the hails and so forth, everything will be unvaried. Here's cycle 2, or rotation 2. Second try to get the C major, A flat. Now it begins to seem as though you're not ever going to get it. What are you going to do? What strategies do you have? Try again. All right, try again. Okay, now we're starting cycle 3, without very much hope, it might be said. Now, cycle 3 is different, or rotation 3. It's one reason it's not a strict theme and variation. Cycle 3 is rather freely treated. Here you get the profile of your A-flat subject, your A-flat musical subject, or if you like, metaphorically, the A-flat hero. And instead of going directly to the hails and the embraces, what happens is that this theme, after its initial 8 measures or whatever it is, cycles back to its beginning again. It seems to be caught in endless loops of self-repetition of the hero. So you actually get theme 1 3 times with no stops for the embraces and no stops for the hails. So you're caught in a kind of loop thing. Eventually what you're going to have to say is stop. We're getting absolutely nowhere. You're spinning your wheels. Of course, each of these 3 appearances in rotation 3 or cycle 3 is differently varied. So here's our hero, 3 variations on his theme. You expect hails and embraces. No, you go back to the beginning again. Twice, we can't even produce a 3rd cycle. So it's almost like you step out of the movement thing. What on earth do we do now? And you fill it up with this kind of empty stuff, it's sort of reflecting on theme 1. But is there anything emptier in Beethoven than this? What do I do? This is nothing. This equals 0. Of course, it's perfect for that sense of inability. No idea what to do. So your subject says, well, all right, why don't I just go and try to claim it one more time? And that's all I can do. It's like, all right, I'll do it. There's C major, grab it. Acknowledge that failure, A-flat minor, cycle 4, and a funereal version of the hero. All of our hopes gone. From this point to the end, the movement is just so great, it's beyond words. Because what Beethoven does in the teeth of failure, failing to get a stable, he's touched C major, and it's all the more bitter for having proclaimed it so fervently, but then to see it disappear. There are no more C majors. What happens now in cycle 4, this great gain in energy, it's as though the whole orchestra The whole mass, the whole political populace joins in a full-throated song, an apotheosis to the hero. Yes, you failed, but you strove so brilliantly. You were such a hero in striving in this glorious apotheosis of the hero's theme. No more C major, but it's just a wonderful, wonderful depiction of this theme in full glory, the thematic climax. Brilliant idea. We're building toward it now. But there is this coda. A coda in which tonally almost nothing happens. It's just grounding of A flat major. Tonally it's just like A flat, you put A flat under that. But what happens psychologically is immense. Instead of just giving you perfunctory chords, bringing it to A flat, you get an initial 4 subsections. The initial one kind of tonally grounds A flat major. And it's as though the crowd in sections 2 and 3 is reluctant to let that hero go. It's A flat major, there's no hope of C. One last hail, one last salute. Let us show you our gratitude one more time. And then subsection 3, one of the greatest moments, I think, in all of music, and it only lasts for about 1/2 second. Do notice it as it comes by. The embrace, the wonderful embrace, turns over to the winds and embrace them exactly as heard before. And when the hero turns to the strings, there's a slight variant of the embrace, and as though the arms are even wider. It just lasts for just a slight variant, but it means everything in the world. It's absolutely wonderful. Then the final groundings and salutes at the end. Here's coda, A flat major, another movement of failure. Chromatic sense. Everything is over. It's all gone. Upward rushes, salutes, hails. A flat major. One last time, embrace section 3. Exactly as you heard it before. And then the great moment, the bigger embrace from the strings. Salutes from the massed voices of the orchestral choir. With 3 on top, and 3 of A flat major is C natural, right? So that C is still poised above the tonic. He's still thinking. I mean, Beethoven thinks of that. Beethoven thinks that C still kind of exists as this third mirage above the A flat tonic at the end. Spectacular stuff. We have 2 chapters. We failed. The first one is a chronicle of failure, a sonata form failure. Seemed like it was going to succeed, but the coda blew it up. Second movement is this weird rotational or cyclical process, kind of like a theme and variations, but kind of not like a theme and variations as well, trying simply to assert C major. Sonatas don't do it, I'm just going to claim it, but it vanishes like smoke, like a mirage. And now you've got two movements to try to get C major back and stabilize it. The scherzo, characteristically, scherzos usually have the function of reinstating the tonic. Scherzos usually return to the tonic. Now, in the 19th century, composers will mess around with that in very interesting ways. But Beethoven here adheres to that particular norm, brings back C minor. So now we're in scherzo. And if I simply say brings back C minor, that sounds like a, sort of a raw analytical data. But what he's bringing back is the initial problem of the first movement. Second movement was this escape to A flat. But now we have to confront it again. This death, this fate, this negative C minor must be confronted in scherzo, trio, scherzo. Scherzo, of course, a much more rapid and dramatic type of minuet triple tom. You can read about this in Beethoven scherzos replacing the aristocratic minuets. C minor. Now, scherzo form should be exactly like minuet form. The way we always diagram it out is A, B, A prime with the repeats like that. That would be minuet. The rhombus binary is minuet, followed by the trio C, D, C prime, like so with the dot capo. You know how this works. It's the standard minuet or scherzo, trio, scherzo structure. That's what we expect to happen. And in fact, most of the time in Beethoven, that's what you do find. That's what you do find. Here in the Fifth Symphony, the trio is written in CDC form or rounded binary form. But here in the scherzo section, call it scherzo rather than minuet, because that's what it is. In the scherzo section, Beethoven departs from this structure. It's a free or ad hoc structure. It's very unusual. It's a sort of a scherzo deformation, if you like. It doesn't follow the standard structure. Because Beethoven has other expressive aids other than simply fulfilling the rounded binary structure. The trio, however, will be in that form. The scherzo will be in C minor. The trio, please note, will be in C major. Once again, that vision of C major is there. Now realize this, that although the trio is in C major, we cannot proclaim any kind of C major stability. Reason? Because we know our formal and generic types. We know that after a trio, you must have a da capo of the scherzo. In other words, the C major will collapse back to C minor by convention. So it again appears as a kind of inner mirage, something that cannot be sustained. True, it is C major, it's where you want to go, but it can't be sustained because the da capo will bring back C minor. And the great fear here is the C minor cadence at the end of the scherzo. Because if, in fact, the scherzo comes back and closes with a perfect authentic cadence in C minor, it's like your throat is cut, your goose is cooked, you are dead at that particular moment. Of course, it's the da capo where it's really bad because it's a 5-1 in C minor over and out, it's all done. So that's the kind of stuff that is at stake here. Now, instead of the A, B, A prime form with the usual repeat scheme, Beethoven has a slightly different scheme here for the scherzo proper. What he does, as with the slow movement, is alternate two ideas in repetitive small cycles, in this case, theme 1 and theme 2. It's a very unusual procedure for a scherzo. They're very easy to distinguish. Theme 1 is piano, very, very quiet, and it suddenly erupts into this forte theme 2. The piano theme in theme 1 obviously represents some sort of sneaky stealth. C minor is back, but shh, sotto voce, don't tell anyone because I'm sneaking up. And number 2 is the pounce on the prey. Gotcha. And not only does it come back pounce, but it comes back reminding you explicitly of the fate theme of the yappa-pa-pa, 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 yada-pa-pa, and so forth. So obviously it's this problem from the first movement, C minor and yappa-pa-pa coming back. What's nasty though is that sneaking around. This nasty sneaking around with theme 1. C minor. Count C minor. Okay, so here we have a basic idea or a basic complex of themes, stealth and hunt. It always reminds me of something feline. Some cat. You hear nothing. Just pow, like so. Suddenly jumping on the poor prey. I wonder if Beethoven thought feline things at this time. I wonder if Beethoven had cats. Do you know if Beethoven had cats? This is very feline. Let's go back to the beginning. Then what we're going to get now are 3 shots of it. 1, 2, 1, 2, and one a little bit more malicious. I always think of this as the cat kind of toying with the prey before killing it, and then the horrible cadence at the end being 2. So that's the way the scherzo. Back to the beginning of the scherzo. Explicitly the idea from the first movement. However, because this is scherzo, trio, scherzo, you know you have a short reprieve because you have a trio to come. Watch out for that da capo. The da capo will get you, but you got a trio. The trio is this very famous section. Well, what isn't famous in this piece, I guess? In standard CDC form, the C actually begins a little ways into it. It's kind of hard to tell where the C prime starts. But basically CDC. However, trios are usually more relaxed and calmer. That's the generic convention, to have more relaxed, rustic, humorous, kind of more just calmer trios than scherzos. Beethoven does the reverse. He gives you a frenzied C major trio written in the form, or written to suggest imitative entries in the manner of a fugue. A fugue in a trio, it's almost unthinkable. A fugue in a trio, and of course it sounds like this. So here are the entries. Second entry. In C major, this little island of temporary C major, why would Beethoven write a fugue and all that scrambling around? And I think, although this never appeared in print anywhere, I think I have the answer to this. The answer, I think, is that Beethoven would have studied fugue from Latin textbooks. That's what, in fact, he would have done at the time. And the word for fugue in Latin is fuga. That's the Latin word for fugue, and all musicians would have gone fuga in fugue. But the literal meaning of that in Latin, is fleeing, or flight, fleeing away from danger, fleeing away. So Beethoven is making, I think, a kind of intellectual pun, a kind of, not an in-joke, but an inside allusion that a fugue can be used as a musical representation of fleeing, and what is being fled, of course, is the C minor. Let me out of here. It's like the fastest steps trying to seek an exit from C minor. I think it's a kind of complicated pun that's actually done. Now let's go back and see anything. Go. Steps. Let me out of here. Closed door. Locked. Not cadence in C major, we're going to dissolve instead of cadence in dominant. And now we've got to face the dreaded da capo, C minor, collapse of C major, and here. Stealth. Okay, usually, of course, what happens is you all play these things or perform them. Usually you see da capo, and you play literally what is there in here. But Beethoven here wants a very special effect. And so what he actually does is to compose out the da capo. He actually writes it out differently. He recomposes the scherzo and only gives you the first statement and the last statement. He blocks out this middle statement, and it all comes back sotto voce. It's something even more sinister than before. Because now you know that the C minor cadence is coming your way. Grotesque effects, choke soon. Here's two. There, contemplate that you're going to have to give this C minor def cadence at the end. That's all. Okay, now we're actually put it here. Looks like C minor's got it. C minor's going to toying with the phrase. C minor cadence in the bag. Okay, that C minor is all over. It's all over. Now, if that were, in fact, a perfect authentic cadence, there would be no finale. The piece would extinguish. The hero would be defeated. Everything would be absolutely terrible. This is the victory of the C minor, right? You sure? And what you think you're going to get is that. It's a C minor and F. But at the last moment, again, terrific idea. Last moment reprieve. A flat in the bass, the so-called deceptive cadence. But the point is, that little A flat in the bass, way underneath, it's not a perfect authentic cadence. Maybe there's still hope. It's that last minute glimmer of a, notice that the A flat is exactly the same A flat as the slow movement. Maybe our hero of the slow movement is making another reappearance. A flat, reminding you of that old A flatness of the slow movement. Now, what we have at this point is, of course, the famous bridge. We have had here scherzo, right? Scherzo, trio, scherzo, and we've had this, what looks like it can be a C minor cadence and def. However, A flat support here. It's really six chord of C minor. It's all C. So here, the A flat is temporary set even 6. So, and now you enter a kind of corridor, kind of bridge to the Neapolitan. You can say skyway. You get to a skyway. You go from one building to another. You go from the scherzo building over to the finale building via this special corridor, or the famous transition or bridge. And in this bridge, very, very famous. In other words, the slow movement doesn't really, or the scherzo doesn't come to a full end, full stop. It merges directly into this corridor. You ask the question, who will win? C minor or C major? Is it really as grim as that? Again, you sprout question marks. And this is very, very scary stuff. A famous remark of a little boy at the first concert, who, toward the end of the scherzo, with all this choking bassoon stuff, and then into this terrifying bridge, this mysterious, this suspenseful bridge, tugs on his father's sleeve and says, "Papa, I'm frightened. Music should not be frightening. Music should be pleasant and entertaining." What's going on? Beethoven shouldn't be doing this kind of stuff, right, Papa? Yeah, right, son, but he is, I guess. All very negative. In fact, this queasy quality comes back there. This famous passage, though your head is spinning, it's almost as though you're ready to kind of lose consciousness altogether. The sense that you've lost your bearings, and at the last moment, suddenly, as though it's almost like troops appearing over the hill or something, the reinforcements finally appear. C major is pulled out of a hat and vaults you into the finale with the primary theme in C major. So it's suddenly the sudden brightening, last hope, boom, and we're off to the finale in C major. Okay, let's hear the bridge. Let's move it back just 10 seconds. Listen to that E flat. This is the end. This is the end. That's where the second cadence is. Now the timpani pounding on the fake mode. Vertigo passage, losing your bearings. Suddenly, that most listeners really, I think, don't understand about this. C major is here. It is stated here. Absolutely. But is the moment of triumph here? The answer is no. The moment of triumph is only given as a promise because we still have a whole sonata movement to go through. And to put it bluntly, you know the way we blew it in the first movement. So you still have to go through this entire sonata process, now in C major, in order to fix and stabilize, to nail down C major, which will only be nailed down, you hope, in the recapitulation with a perfect, authentic cadence and then celebrated in the coda. So it's like, yes, we're still going to do this, but there is still much activity, sonata activity needed to secure this C major. So now here's the finale. Here's the finale. Primary theme, none of these things are. Joel, you're giving me bad, you're giving me bad. This is about the 7th one I'm trying. I had a good deal with it. It seems to disappear. Sonata form, but with much greater promise because it's a C major sonata form. The troops have arrived, as it were, to save the day. So primary theme, this kind of celebratory French Revolutionary March filled with trumpets, and of course the trombones are brought in here for the first time. These sacred traditions, the idea of the sacred trombone. So the reinforcements are about this famous trombone infants at the moment of the finale and so on. But obviously it's in the tonic and 1 C major, filled with celebrations, triumph, and promise. It's as though a kind of victory dance, potential victory dance over da 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 da. This is da-da-dum, da-da-dum, da-da-dum. Now we're searching for that. cadence developing. As though quasi-victory dance, we have not yet solidified C major. Through various keys, sequences, and keys, C minor. Last. Have you really dealt with me? C minor. C minor, have you really? I'm still around, you know. But of course they say, forget it. C major is my very frustrating. Last chance. Is your sonata going to do it? This is getting pretty close to the end here. full energy pitch reinforcement. C major is now a reality. We're ecstatic, obviously. One more cadence and celebration. Rubbing it in. I've got the C major fine. Pure blocks. Pure C major. This is a good composer. every note, and it would be even greater to spend like about 5 weeks looking at all the little inner tricks. I mean, I actually sort of like the plot summary. It's just great along the way. Well, thank you all, and we'll wish you all the best, alas, tomorrow for me. Do get here at 10:05 early if you can, and we'll continue with